talk about fears. Let's talk about love. Yeah, I got fears, but I ain't got no love. Yes, I got fears. Fear of plane crash. Fear of car crash. Oh, fear of sex. Fear of alcohol.
Okay, good morning. Today we're going to talk about Casey Anthony, and this is our deep dive. So, you've already watched Solved or Unsolved on Monday, and Tuesday you watched my key clue. And now today we're going to do a deep dive, and baby, it's going to be a deep dive. I got my Pete's Dark Roast in a Yeti to keep it warm this time. Thanks for the suggestion. I have a feeling this is going to be a little longer video because I want to take my time. I want to go over everything. There will be times when I pause and I'm thinking of something because something is going to come to me. I have a lot of notes written down here. So let's get into it, okay? Casey Anthony. Everybody knows the background of this, I'm sure. That's why you're watching this. If you're not, I'll briefly go over the timeline for you. Casey Anthony was 22-year-old mom at the time to a 2-year-old Caylee. They lived in Florida with Casey's parents, George and Cindy. In June, and specifically June 16th of 2008, it was the last day that anyone ever seen 2-year-old Caylee alive. On June, strike that, July 15th, 30 days since Caylee was last seen alive, the parents, this is what gets the ball rolling, okay? The parents receive a notice in the mail that their car has been towed because it was abandoned. When George goes to pick up his daughter's car, it smells of a dead body. His words. They bring it home. Mom, Cindy, calls the police. Apparently she calls them 3 times. On the 3rd time, she says there smells like there's been a dead body in the car. And I haven't seen my grandchild for 30 days. Been missing. Casey comes home. She's been gone for 30 days. Okay, no one's seen her either. She lives there. Unusual. They have an argument about where Caylee is. She says, I've left her with the nanny. This is the last time I seen her. She's missing. I don't know where they're at. The police go and search for this nanny. And it was Anita Gonzalez, nicknamed Zanny the Nanny. That name is going to play, I believe, a very important role in this, at least in my opinion, based on the totality of Casey Anthony's background. When they go look for this nanny, they can't find her. Casey takes police to an abandoned apartment. Manager there says there's nobody that's ever been here by that name. That apartment has not blah, blah, blah. Casey says, well, you know what? If you don't believe me, I've told 2 other people, co-workers, that, about this. You can go talk to them. Okay, well, take us to where you work. She takes them to Universal Studios, pretends like she works there, walks down a dead-end hallway after waving to everybody, saying hi, hi, and then just turns around abruptly and says, okay, I don't work here. So police, obviously, are now honing in on Casey Anthony. And I think that's where this started to unravel, obviously, for her and her lies. In December 11th of that same year, 2008, so approximately 6 months later, remains were found within a half a mile of Casey Anthony's home, and they were confirmed to be of Caylee's remains. That's where we're going to start, okay? I pretty much went over all that stuff previously, so now we're going to get into the meat and potatoes of this case. Casey is arrested. She goes to trial. She is acquitted. Now, what we have to look at, obviously, is victimology. I touched on this a little bit, and there's not a lot to it. Okay? When you have a victim that's a child, 2 years old, they don't make many enemies in life. Okay? So right there, you can start deducing. You can get rid of revenge, as a motivating factor to murder. You have to look at who would want to murder a small child. Especially, this is important, and we don't know this, especially when sexual abuse is not present, right? Because serial offenders, serial killers will kill kids. I mean, it's happened in the past numerous times, but there's a sexual component to that. Here, we don't have that. That we know of, because when Caylee's remains were found, they were skeletonized. So what does that mean? That means there is no more flesh on the bones. Now, speaking of that, I find that very, I guess I want to say unusual, but again, I'm not a pathologist. I'm not in that medical field. I understand that the body had been out for 6 months in Florida heat. That obviously is going to decay faster than a lot of areas. So I have not seen that. Not to say that don't happen. It obviously did, and I believe that. But it was just something that stuck out to me. We have to look at suspects in this case. Just like we did in John Benet Ramsey, where you try to, you're deducing possibilities to probabilities. So, and we can start weeding out suspects. So you always want to start inside, okay, the closest. Well, right off the bat, you're going to be looking at Casey because of her lies. Now, most importantly, her daughter goes missing in June. She doesn't report her missing. Ever. Okay? The mom is the one who reports her missing or makes Casey do it. What do you think that is? That is an obvious red flag. Her behavior during those 31 days is crucial to this investigation. And I will get into that. Let's stick with suspectology. I think, you're looking at Casey. Okay, she's a suspect. We don't have to go any further than her lies, her not reporting her daughter missing for 31 days. That's all you need to go on right off the bat for her to be a suspect. Okay? Who else is a suspect? Well, we got to look at her boyfriends at the time. We also have to look at other people inside that house. So you look at George, a former police officer. You look at Cindy. The dynamics in that house. From the transcripts I read, from interviews, to me, Cindy is the domineering factor in that house. She runs that house. We can say that they're suspects. Peripherally, okay? Let's now go from suspectology to evidence. Because once you do that, once you start looking at the evidence, now you're going to really be able to deduce, remember, the possibilities, the probabilities, possible suspects. Once we look at evidence, we're going to be able to deduce and get to probable suspects. So listen, here we have, when Caylee's found, she's placed in a kind of not a mesh, a canvas type of laundry bag, a blanket, and I believe 2 black garbage bags. Okay. With duct tape around the mouth of the child. Let's start there and start seeing what that tells us. Okay? It tells me, number one, the body is being hid. Somebody does not want that child to be found. Why else wrap it in those plastic bags? It is found 20 feet, 25 feet off of a roadway into the woods. That tells me something too. If you want something not to be found, you wrap it, much like they did. But wouldn't you also want to bury that body, maybe, instead of just placing it into the woods? In addition, when you look at the aerial maps, which I have obviously, to where that body was found, 20 feet from the roadway is too far to throw something, but yet it's not far enough, in my opinion. You would want to walk 1,000 yards into those woods to make sure she's not found. But it's only 20 feet. Why? Well, I surmise that it is somebody that is not familiar with the woods and or is scared of the woods, more than likely at dark. So why do I say that? That's the thing. You have to be able to back up what you say. You can't just say it. Well, again, 20 feet, you take the time to wrap it in black plastic so it's not discovered, but yet you don't bury it and you don't take it far enough into the woods in order to surely maintain that it's not going to be found, especially quickly. That's why I think that more than likely it was somebody scared of the dark, somebody in a hurry, but not a hurry enough to throw from the roadway, walk in and place it there. You could potentially say, based on that, it's a female. I think a lot of people could make that assumption. I won't go that far. Because I will just leave it at that general term that somebody's scared of the dark, someone unfamiliar or scared of being in the woods. I'll leave it at that. Now, let's start deducing, okay? If they can, what evidence is there at that crime scene? It's not really a crime scene. We don't know that. It could be a crime scene, right? Child could have been killed there. But we do know for sure it's at least a dump site. But a dump site is a secondary crime scene. There's things there that's going to point you to the offender. So what do we have? We have a blanket. Okay, let's trace that blanket. Let's find out the manufacturer, where it comes from. Well, guess what? It's a Winnie the Pooh blanket. You go to Caylee's room in that house, and her room is made up of Winnie the Pooh theme. That's not coincidence, okay? I had a case of a 5-year-old child that was murdered, and her room was done in Little Mermaid. Curtains, blanket, bedspread, pillowcase, all that. I can envision that Casey Anthony's daughter Caylee's room was much the same way. And you can imagine my shock when 20 years later I do a search warrant at a suspect's house, and at the back of his closet I find a bloody Little Mermaid curtain. So it has a little bit of parallel to this case, I guess. But the laundry bag, the canvas type laundry bag, laundry basket, also not consistent, the same as one that was found in Casey Anthony's home. In fact, they were sold in pairs, and one of them was missing. Meaning there was only one. I don't know if it's missing. Maybe they bought the pair and threw one away. But let's be realistic. That's good evidence. Let's go to the car. Cindy, Casey's mom, says it smells like a dead body has been in that car. The police do the right thing, okay? Put yourself in the police shoes. They get this car. Now, remember, the car had been abandoned. It had been towed. Went from now the abandonment to the tow lot to the Anthony home. And now police take it to their bay to do a search warrant on it. And it still smells. The police officers that were there smell it. They do the right thing by bringing a cadaver dog in. I mean, and you say to yourself, well, why do they bring a cadaver dog in? They know there's not a dead body in the car, right? People have looked at it already. Well, let's see what that smell is. Now, this is the thing about cadaver dogs. I've used them a lot. They are trained specifically on human decomposition. The dog walks around the car, does what it does, and it alerts. So what does a dog do when it alerts? Does it start barking? Well, its alert is done whatever the handler trains it to do. Most of them will sit. So they're running around. When they find what they do, they sit. So like a drug dog, I've done trainings where we'll take a bag of cocaine and we will place it 100 yards away, bury it, or stick it in a limb in a tree, and you watch the dog work. He's going, he's smelling, blah, blah, blah. And when he gets to that tree, he just sits. That's an alert. In this case, that's exactly what the cadaver dog did. And he didn't alert to the front of the car, the back of the car. He alerted to the trunk. Very important. When they open the trunk, there's a stain. Okay? They take a sample of that. Not only did they find a stain and they took a sample of it, they found human hair. This is key. The stain itself, they cut out a sample and they send it to a lab to be tested, and they say that it has all the elements of a decomposing body had been there. Very high level of chloroform. Now, chloroform is a chemical that is also released when a body dies. It's natural, but in this case, it seems to be at an elevated level. Let's put all that scientific stuff to the side. Let's go to the hair. The hair is checked for mitochondrial DNA, and I think I've gone over this with you guys before. Mitochondrial DNA is the mother's lineage, okay? So the DNA from that hair was either from Cindy Anthony, Casey Anthony, or Caylee Anthony. Okay? Those three people. However, now we're going to deduce whose hair it is, right? The hair had a band on it. A black type of, let's say this is the hair. Okay, you see this? This whole length of this pen is the hair. And see this rubber grip right here? Let's say that's the band. A black band in that hair. And that only occurs when a body has died. And that is present there. I believe they call that a decomp band. So now you would think, well, Casey is still alive, Cindy's still alive, but we know that Caylee's not. So do you think we could deduce that that was Caylee's hair? I do. But wait, there's people out there who say that's not enough. So let's go a little bit further. The hair is 9 inches in length. The hair has also never been treated. Now do you think we could deduce that it's not Cindy and it's not Casey's hair and it's Caylee's? I believe there's enough there to do that. So now we can say there was a decomposing body in that trunk. I got a fly flying around here. You guys are going to think it's an orb because somebody has said that to me before. You seen that orb go behind in one of your videos? That wasn't an orb. That was a fly. Makes me think of the Amityville Horror. Oh, I better check my windows. If those windows start filling up with flies, like in the Amityville Horror, hey, Maine's really out. Out that door, I'll leave this running to record my final moments, but I'll be gone if I believed in that stuff. But if a bunch of flies show up right there, best believe I'll become a believer quick. Okay, so we get through the evidence. Let's talk about Casey's behavior in those 31 days. She's out drinking. She's out partying. Hey, 22-year-old girl. I don't care. But wait, her daughter's missing. Now I do care. People react differently under different circumstances, and I always give them that benefit of the doubt. Is it appropriate? Who's to say what appropriate is? I don't judge. I go off of facts. But I will take her actions of going out, drinking, partying every day, the statements from her roommates, her boyfriends, the people she hung out with, when she did not mention her daughter missing one time. Okay, she gets a tattoo. I don't put much stock into that like the prosecution did. What did this tattoo say? Bella Vita, a beautiful life in Italian. I think they put too much stock into that, but whatever. She gets a tattoo. Her actions obviously were not of somebody grieving the loss. And notice I said loss, not missing. Child. Now, why do I say loss? Okay, let's go to accident versus premeditated homicide. I kind of struggled with this. Let's make no mistake about it. In my opinion, based on the evidence that I see, Casey Anthony is responsible. Notice I didn't say killed yet. Responsible for her daughter's death. So, why? How? Okay, those are things that trouble most of us. We want to know that. I believe the defense in this, Jose Baez, could not overcome that. they knew there was too much evidence there to show that Caylee was responsible. And I believe that. The duct tape on the mouth, the blanket coming from the house, the searches on the computer, okay? The search for chloroform, whether it was done 84 times, whether it was done once, don't care. When you have a search done of chloroform, and then there's a high level of that in that trunk where a hair was that we've deduced that is Caylee's, and a decomposing body was in there based on the cadaver dog and based off of the readings, the scientific readings of the stain in the trunk. And Caylee was driving that car. Casey Anthony is responsible. No doubt in my mind. I don't think there's any doubt in anybody's mind. But we need to now to determine how and why. And we will do that through deduction. When somebody is dead, you have to look at who would want them dead. Now, who would want a 2-year-old girl dead? Not very many people, unless it's child abuse is involved, unless a sexual motive was involved. In this case, we have a mother who, through suspectology, we've determined is a partier, but we've also determined that she's a good mother. Now you're saying, Kenny, some of you guys are probably getting mad right now, right? How can you say that? Well, there was no instance of child neglect. The child had a roof over her head. Granted, that was provided mostly by the parents of Caylee. Everybody that was interviewed that I saw said she was a good parent. So you have to couple that into your assessment. No matter what that evidence shows you. I don't care that the evidence shows me that she killed that kid. You still have to look at, well, she was a good mother. Doesn't mean she couldn't kill her kid. Remember a case, I believe their name was Susan Smith, who drove her kids into a lake? Was there any incidents in her past that showed that she was a bad mother? I don't think so. So it doesn't mean it can't happen. We have to figure out why. So who would want her dead? Well, certainly not the grandparents. You go back to Caylee, right? Or Casey's boyfriend. And I throw that in there because that is a possibility. It's not a probability. Okay? He, I believe, is certainly ruled out of this. But that doesn't mean that the boyfriend or that lifestyle didn't factor into Casey's decision to kill the kid. Now, at trial, the defense says, okay, the reason Caylee didn't report her missing for 31 days is she was already dead, and Caylee knew that. Caylee died. She drowned in a swimming pool. And George, the dad, covered it up for his daughter. Oh, by the way, he has been molesting Caylee, his own daughter, since the age of 8. To me, and I'm just going by me, everybody has their own opinions, that is how low defense attorneys will go. Where's your evidence of that, Jose Baez? Okay? You just, as if this man's life wasn't ruined enough, you have now ruined it further by insinuating that he's a child molester. You bring it up in your opening statements, but then you don't come back to it at all. You know why? Because the judge won't allow it. Why won't the judge allow it? Because you have no evidence of it. That being said, 1 million Americans would want Jose Baez as their attorney if anything ever happened to them. Whether I agree with it or not, and obviously you can tell whether I do or not, he did his job. That decision to do that, you have to look at Caylee. And that will help you determine what type of person she is. She was willing to throw her dad under the bus like that to save her own life, knowing it's going to jeopardize her relationship with her father forever. She admitted he was a great father, great grandfather, but yet you did that. That is a hallmark trait of a narcissist. And I believe fully that's what she is. Now that we've decided that Caylee is responsible for the death, when I was looking at this, Zanny the nanny always stood out to me. Okay? Being in the drug world, running a drug task force, a countywide drug task force for a number of years, and working undercover for the FBI and for the county before I became the supervisor, I know, obviously, a lot about drugs and slang term Zanny for Xanax. No, you don't have to be brilliant to figure that out. I'm not saying I'm brilliant by figuring it out, but I'm just saying my experience. I believe when she says Zanny the nanny, I believe that is a name that she made up in her head long before this murder took place, or this death. Because we don't know whether it's a murder or an accident yet. I'll tell you about the end what it is, but I can envision Caylee, the party girl, telling that to friends when she's drinking, they're having a good time. Where's Caylee? Zanny the nanny. Meaning she gave her Xanax to put her to sleep. I think she thought it's a catchy nickname. They came up with it and it stuck. I have no evidence of that. That's just an opinion that I have. But when I looked at the totality of everything, it appeared to me that this was an accidental death. How I qualify that by saying she was a good mom. She had people to rely on, her grandparents, her parents, Caylee's grandparents, to watch her. The amount of chloroform in high levels in that trunk, the search on the home computer for chloroform, lead me to believe that it is possible that for some period of time, that is how Caylee would put Caylee to sleep. Now, you go to the trial where Caylee's mom, Cindy, takes the stand and says, I'm the one who looked up chloroform on the computer. I was typing chlorophyll because my dogs were chewing on bamboo. I wanted to know if it was Cut the shit. You just lied under oath. 1,000%. Then the prosecution shows her work records. Hey, you were at work. Here's your work stamps. So if you were at work, how could you be searching that? Cindy Anthony is protecting Casey. 100%. I have no doubt about it. In addition, Cindy said, the decomposing odor, when I called 911, said, it smells like there's been a damn dead body in here. You misunderstood me. I was just saying that to get police to come quicker. It was actually a bag of garbage in there. Let me tell you something from somebody that smelled dead bodies before. There is a huge difference between smelling a bag of rotted garbage, and this only had like pizza in it, to rotting flesh. George Anthony knew this. He was a cop. He knew what he smelled, beyond a shadow of a doubt. Again, it's Cindy Anthony, the matriarch of this family, the one who runs the show, doting on her only daughter and protecting her. Trust me, she's not naive, folks. She knows. I don't care what interview she gives. She knows what happened. She may not in her mind want to believe that, but she knows. I need another drink of Pete's. Hold on. So when I said accidental death, the search for chloroform, Zanny the nanny, her partying lifestyle leads me to believe that she had been given Caylee something to put her to sleep. And maybe this time she didn't wake up. That's what I thought. Okay? I was convinced on that for a while. Until you focus in on those 31 days. To me, that is key. She's out partying every night. There's photographs of it. I don't care that she's grinding on another girl, entering a hot body contest. She's dating a DJ, living at his house. If it was an accidental death, this is very important, so please listen to this. If she accidentally killed Caylee, her being a good mother during those 31 days, don't you think she would be grieving at least one night? Instead, she's out partying like nothing happened. That's murder. That's not an accident. So, it changed from accidental death to murder. Is it premeditated? Now that gets a little harder. But if you go off the searches, now I saw that a new company or something had looked at the search history and they found that somebody searched for foolproof suffocation the day that Caylee went missing. Could have been anybody in that house, right? But then the next search is for MySpace. George and Cindy didn't have a MySpace account, but Casey did. Again, possibilities, right? The probabilities. To me, premeditation does not have to be 5 months in advance, a month in advance. Premeditation could be 15 minutes in advance. So based off of everything that I saw, I believe that it's premeditated murder. committed by Casey Anthony. Okay, we've done all this. Why? The prosecution's theory is she didn't want to be burdened with a child and she wanted this other life. Based off her actions for those 31 days, you can buy into that, right? It's tough. It's tough. It's tough to come to that conclusion. Yet, I believe that's what the evidence shows. I keep going back to Ken's key clue. When she was having a conversation with her parents from that prison, and the mom asked, "Do you think she's safe? Is she close? What do you think? Where is she?" And Casey says, "She's close by. I feel it. She's close by." To me, that's incriminating. Because she knows she's close by because she placed her in those woods close by the house. Another thing that I want to look at, or what I observed, and I haven't seen anybody bring this up, or at least it wasn't in the transcripts or something, but the side of the road where Caylee's remains were found, it's on the same side of the road if you were leaving from the Anthony house. If you were coming in another direction, you would have to pull off on this side of the road. Do you know what I mean? It's easier to not cross the road, carrying a dead child, whether it's wrapped in something or not, when you're already on the right-hand side of the road. I thought that was important. The remains being found on the same side of the road that you would be driving from, leaving the Anthony house, with the Winnie the Pooh blanket and the laundry bag, which all came from inside the house. Alright, I'm going to go through my notes now, because there's some things that I probably missed, and I write things down, because at my old age of 40 something now, hey, after 21, what other age is there to look for? So I forget. But I write these things down. I have down here, Cindy is minimizing the 911 call, exclamation point. I already went into that, no doubt. Not garbage, I have circled. That smell was not from garbage. The duct tape. That's one of the biggest pieces of evidence. When you consider accidental death, say this is an accident, whether she drowned in the pool or Casey gave her too much drugs to quiet her or make her sleep through the night and she died, do you put duct tape over the child's mouth once she's dead? Why? You don't stage an accident to look like murder. I can't think of a reason to do that if it was accidental. I'll get into the duct tape later. Dynamics between mom and dad. Again, Cindy run that house. She is obviously a difference between what happened to Caylee compared to George. I have written down here, Cindy makes herself more involved with Caylee than she is. Casey learned by example. Cindy attacks George. So what I mean by that is, in an interview that I watched that Cindy gave, she made it, I have no doubt that she was involved heavily, there's that pun again, heavily in the rearing of Caylee. But oftentimes grandparents, and I've seen this lots of times, interject themselves way too much into the grandparent's life, trying to take over that role as mother. I believe that's Cindy. In one interview, she says, George was saying, well, there was a couple nights where Caylee was not here. And Cindy almost snapped at him. What do you mean? She was always here. Name one instance. He's like, well, there was a couple times. Name one. I tucked her in bed every single night. I guarantee that that's a lie. I guarantee that she did not tuck her in every single night. Okay? Again, to me, that's a grandparent interjecting themselves a little too much. And I think Casey felt that. And there was probably arguments between those two about how to raise the daughter. And that is another reason why I think Casey, when people say, well, why would she have to kill Caylee? Her mom could have raised it. That's probably the last thing in Casey's mind that she wanted her to do. Okay? In her mind, it was probably, hey, I would rather nobody raise my daughter than to have my mom do it and give her that satisfaction. The gas cans being stolen. I sat and pondered this. Okay? They hadn't seen Casey in those 31 days. George comes home, finds his shed broken into, and his gas can's missing. Casey's there. And he's like, oh, hey, where you been? What's going on? Nothing. I'm late for work or whatever. And she didn't even have a freaking job. She was lying all the time about that. He asked her about the gas cans. She didn't know. He goes outside. And he finds the gas cans in her car. Now you say, what's the big deal about that? Why was she getting those gas cans? Was it because she had no money? She needed gas for the car? Remember, that's why the car was towed to begin with. Or is it something more sinister? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. And by sinister, I mean, was there thoughts of burning that body? Maybe not. I don't know. But those gas cans, why did she take them? Is it just because she ran out of gas? If she ran out of gas, how did she get there? Or did she borrow another car? And I don't think that's the case. I think they said it was the Pontiac Sunfire that was there. Because he said he went out to the car and he didn't smell anything then and saw the gas cans. See, and then that gets me thinking. If she had returned to the house, let's say 10 days later, George goes out, he observes the gas cans in the back of the Sunfire where supposedly Caylee's remains or a decomposing body was, and he didn't smell anything, then that means she either wasn't dead yet or was laying somewhere else dead before being placed back in that trunk. Not sure. I guess I have to learn more about that gas can incident and the time frame of that. See, I'm always learning something new when I sit here and talk to you guys. Okay, suicide attempt by George. The defense wanted to paint that as, hey, he did something to Caylee, whether he covered it up or whatever, and he tried to. To me, it's a grieving grandfather who was a little bit too attached, just like Cindy, I think, and it's because they lived there with her. Of course, they're going to be attached. He had a lot of pressure on him, thinking that he raised this daughter, the love of his life, and she basically not only killed her own kid, but threw him under the bus and said that he was sexually molesting her. I don't blame the guy. I understand that he wanted probably to end his own life. Doesn't mean he's guilty, okay? Foolproof suffocation the day of the disappearance. That's key. Cindy saying somebody else performed those searches. She's just in such denial in her own head. The next line I wrote, Cindy is in denial. Because she still believes that Caylee drowned in the pool. I have down here narcissist for Casey, without a doubt. I've circled here her first phone call when she was saying she's not far. My key clue. Cadaver dog being trained specifically on human decomp. Alerted on that trunk. I had down here, if they believe chloroform was used, why not trace that cell? How easy is it to get chloroform? And then I understood that you can make it. And there was Google searches for that as well. And then I have Ray. If this was an accident, she would not have been acting the way she did for those 31 days. No evidence of sexual abuse on Caylee, and there's no evidence of drowning. Now, of course, what's the body going to tell you? Okay, the body is evidence too, but it's skeletonized. But under microscopes, you can tell whether there's, let's say, nicks to the ribs, as a stabbing would occur, or blunt force trauma. There was none of that. So I think you can't rule out drowning based off of just the body, the manner of death. You don't know how she died. Okay? So could it have been an accident? If you just base it off of the body alone, sure. But why would you put duct tape on the mouth? Why would you hide the body in plastic bags and place it in the woods? Again, you don't stage it to look like a murder when it's an accident. Dr. Spitz testified. Okay. For all of you that watch my channel, you know I'm a big fan of Dr. Werner Spitz. He is a good friend. Well, I consider him a good friend. We have had a handful of occasions where we have drank some beer and we've talked shop. We've never talked about this case. Now, I haven't seen Dr. Spitz in a number of years. But when I did, I loved the guy. Treated me the best anybody could ever treat somebody. With that said, I don't believe he was a hired gun by the defense. I think he testified to what his opinion is. Now, whether you believe that opinion or not, like I do not, doesn't take away at all my admiration for the man. I just disagree. But he is true when he says, based off of the body, you cannot determine whether it was an accidental death or a homicide. And I agree with that. Now, Dr. Jan Garavalo, or whatever, Dr. G, I guess she has her own TV show, or did. She disagrees with that, and she testified at the trial that based off of being wrapped up, being discarded in the woods, and the duct tape, you can determine it's homicide. I agree with her. Dr. Spitz testified that if that tape was around Caylee's mouth to kill her, okay, the prosecution contends Casey gave her drugs, then put the tape around her nose and mouth to suffocate her and let her sleep. And she died. Dr. Spitz said, hey, if that was the case, you would have Caylee's DNA on the inside of that tape that was touching the child's mouth. And you would have the offender's DNA on the outside. Well, with all due respect to Dr. Spitz, and you know how much I respect him, I disagree with him here because you don't always leave DNA, number one. Now, I will agree that Caylee's DNA on the inside of that tape, the sticky side, should be there. However, you must take into account the body being, and that duct tape being left out for 6 months in the elements, the Florida heat, getting wet, just all those elements destroyed the human flesh. To think that it would not destroy the flesh and the DNA that was attached to the sticky side of that tape is ludicrous. So I will disagree respectfully with Dr. Spitz on that occasion. Again, and I have written down here, why duct tape? To me, it comes down to 3 reasons that we have to deduce which one it is. Suffocation. Put it on there to suffocate her. That's the prosecution's theory. Staging. To make it look like something that it's not. And thirdly, what I think, maybe, keep her quiet. To keep her quiet. Not as in, I'm going to put her in bed and I'm going to put some duct tape around her face to keep her quiet. No, I don't mean that. But I mean as in, yes, chemicals being applied to her and then the duct tape over her mouth, not specifically to suffocate her, but in case she wakes up from that she can't scream. Those are the 3 things. Now, can we deduce which one? Well, I don't know if we can. So I'm not going to try. But those are the 3 things that I believe as to the reason for the duct tape. I have down here the tattoo. I don't really put much stock in that. Other than if your daughter's missing, you're getting a tattoo that says beautiful life. But that tattoo goes into the whole partying during those 31 days. Again, she's 22. I don't mind that you're partying, but when your child's missing, and let's say dead, she was dead during that time, then I think I got a problem with it. Zanny the Nanny, I have made up by Casey. I have no evidence of that, I told you, but I can just envision her partying with her friends, and they're like, they're dancing. Well, where's Caylee? Zanny the Nanny. And they all laugh about it. Now, I don't know if that's common. If it's common that, I'm going to put quotes here, parents, because what kind of parent would do that to a kid? If individuals do that to kids to put them to sleep. I don't know if that's a common practice or in certain circles, the party circles with ecstasy and being involved and stuff like that. I'd be curious to know that. The jury selection. Now everyone wants to get on the jury. How could they be so stupid? Just like OJ, right? I said in my OJ video, I believe that that was the right decision by the jury. Not because I believe OJ's innocent. Not at all. I believe he's guilty. I believe he committed those murders alone, and the prosecution had it right. However, the defense outlawyered the prosecution. It put reasonable doubt, and that is how the jury system is made up. So they gave the correct verdict, in my opinion. In this case, I think they were wrong. I believe Jose Baez did an outstanding job as a defense attorney. There was more evidence in OJ. Okay? But that was not explained away, but the seed of doubt was planted. There's my pun again. Planted by the introduction of Mark Fuhrman. In this case, they attacked the credibility of Casey's father because that's all that they had. When you can't determine the cause of death, I think that was reasonable enough for the jurors to not convict her. But not convict her on any count? I think there was enough evidence there, in my opinion. So, but what you have to realize about jurors is jury selection. It's not like you just walk down to the 7-Eleven or the Unimart and you say, hey, you 11, 12 people with the alternate, come here and listen to this and decide. No, there's a jury selection. And the prosecutor and the defense get to strike jurors. So you had this national media, right, on this case, and everything's pointing towards her guilt. And everyone sees it. Everybody sees it. Everybody that's watching sees it. So they get these jurors in there. Hey, have you been subjected to the Casey Anthony trial? Yes. Well, what's your opinion? Oh, my opinion is looks like she did it. Well, can you be fair and unbiased? Yeah, I can. But the defense says, no, go. And that happens. So when you start doing that, who are you left with in that jury? People that don't believe it. So now the prosecution has to convince people that are going into it that already don't believe that she's guilty. That's my opinion. I have here the chloroform being in a high concentration in that trunk. Chloroform, the defense wants to say, is in cleaning products. So if somebody cleaned that trunk, okay, but they got it from a stain. That chloroform doesn't explain the Google searches on chloroform. It also doesn't explain the cadaver dogs alerting on that trunk. Okay, so it's the totality of everything. The defense just wants to strike at one thing. Think of it as a balloon. The prosecution, chloroform, is in the trunk. And there's the balloon. Well, the defense, all they got to do is come in and say, well, isn't chloroform used in cleaning products? Yep. Boom. Pop that balloon. And go on to the next thing. But it's the totality of everything. Okay? It's the dogs alerting there. It's the search on the computer. So then you can infer that chloroform was used either as a decomposing body and the gas is released, or being used as a drug, or a combination of both. You can infer those things. Think of it like this. Let's say it's a sunny day outside, right? Good, nice, sunny day. You're inside. You have no windows. You have no nothing. You're inside for 2 hours. You come outside, and it's overcast, but the ground's wet. Well, you were inside. You did not see that it rained, right? But you can infer that it rained based on the totality of everything. The overcast lighting in the water being all over the ground. You can infer that it rained. That's what you got to do here. I have big letters here. Cindy's a liar. I believe that. Obviously, Casey is. Obviously. And this bothered me. Not quite as much, but almost as much as accusing George of sexually molesting his daughter. They had the attack of the utility worker that found the remains. You wonder why people don't want to get involved in anything. Here this poor guy is going about his day. He discovers the remains. He goes down there. He's not sure what it was. He picks up the skull with a stick through the eye socket. And they want to attack him because of that. Are you for real? Oh, that bothers me. This guy did nothing wrong. And they want to attack him for disturbing a crime scene? How did he know what it was? That's what I hate about defense attorneys. I really do. I mean, I get they have a job to do. So you have to separate that. And I have. I've had defense attorneys attack me on the stand, later in the hallway, apologize to me. And in the beginning, I couldn't take it. I would snap at them. Hell, one hired me to be his detective. So, I mean, I understand, but it really upsets me. And I have down here, the last thing that I wrote is she died at home. Okay? And I believe that. Believe that based on the Winnie the Pooh blanket, the laundry basket, everything coming from the home, the location a half a mile from the home on the same side of the street where she would park and dispose of the body. All those reasons, I believe Casey Anthony is responsible and it's premeditated murder. Now, I did see where the prosecution had said that he believed that she was murdered by Casey by giving him the chloroform, putting the duct tape over Caylee's mouth and face so she couldn't breathe, put her in the trunk for a day, went to her boyfriend's house, and then the next day disposed her. I don't buy that. Caylee's remains had to be in the trunk of that car for either a significant amount of time in order for a stain of decomposition to form and for that smell. Not just one day. That doesn't happen in one day. Or she was killed and she was somewhere else for a period of time, then placed into that trunk and driven to a place. I think that is less probable than Caylee just being in that trunk for a significant amount of time in order for decomposition to occur, for the stain, for the chloroform, for the gases to all build up into that trunk. I believe that she was probably there for at least 5 days. At least. Could have been there longer. So, that's what the evidence tells me. Okay? Alright, I'm done. I'm done talking about Casey Anthony. Okay? She's acquitted, which was the wrong choice, in my opinion. And I believe that she got away with murder. She's not the first. She won't be the last. You know, I don't even want to go into the allegations of her paying Jose Baez off with sex because she had no money and being caught by the private investigator for the defense who saw Casey running into the conference room naked and then talking to Casey saying, you can't do this. And Casey says, well, I have to. I got no money to pay him. If that's the case, you're talking one sleazy freaking attorney. Okay? Do I believe it? I don't know enough about this private investigator. You know, the people that know the private investigator, know his character, and know Jose Baez and his character, they would be the ones to ask to say whether they believe that or not. But knowing Casey Anthony and her background, I don't doubt it. I don't doubt it. You know, she supposedly canceled an interview last minute. Baez canceled it for her. And then he said to her, now you owe me 3 blowjobs. And this was overheard and by the private investigator. And he swore to it in a deposition. The whole thing is a tragedy. It's a tragedy. You sit there and you think about the child. And how the mother, and we don't even know who the father is. She never released who the father was. No one ever knew who the father was. That's crazy. I think that, again, goes into the psychology of Casey Anthony, where it's all about her. Her fun. Her life. Out partying. It wasn't an accident. She was a good mother, quote unquote, by all accounts. If it was an accident, she would not be out partying and doing those things. She would feel remorse, feel some sort of grief for what happened. I didn't mean to kill my daughter. You know? Didn't see that. Instead, she's out. Living life, having fun, grinding on other girls, drinking, throwing up, entering hot body contests. To me, that's somebody who deliberately planned to kill their kids and or their child and has no remorse and is going on with life just the way I wanted. Basically, everything the prosecution said. And you know me, oftentimes, you know, I don't agree with the prosecution just to agree. You know, I think they got it right this time, and the jury got it wrong. So, that's it for Casey Anthony Wednesday's Deep Dive. Thursday, tomorrow, we're going to be live, and we're going to discuss this case like we do every Thursday. Friday, I'm going to answer your questions and comments about it. And then next week, we're going to start a new case, and I don't know what it's going to be yet. This one was a little bit emotional draining for me, but check out our new Instagram and Twitter accounts, Unsolved No More. I think it's hashtag Unsolved No More. I'm not up with all that stuff, but the person who runs it, that's what it is, I guess. I don't know. She does a great job, and I just want you guys to go and check those things because she often posts our upcoming schedule and what's going on, so you'll always be informed of what's happening at Unsolved No More. The channel continues to grow, and everybody seems to like the new format. I like the new format. I like being able to talk and teach you guys what's going on and what a detective sees, you know, when we look at certain things. And I hope I continue to do that for you on these cases going forward. Merchandise. A lot of question about merchandise. For some reason, it doesn't show up on cell phones. So it's like you have to go to a desktop, go to the Unsolved No More page, and on one of the tabs it says store. Just click on store, and it gives you all the sweatshirts, and we'll have some more stuff coming out. And November 28th, I believe, I will be on the Reels channel. The show is called Friends Speak. And on this episode, it will be about Lonnie Franklin, the Grim Sleeper. And I'll be interviewed on that, so check that out. And as that comes closer, I'm sure I'll promote that a little bit more. But that's it for Unsolved No More. And that's it for Wednesday's Deep Dive on Casey Anthony and the murder, more importantly, the victim, Caylee Anthony. So until next time, Maine's out.